Welcome into the new and revised Psych with Mike library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan, and I am here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
You got a lot more books in here than you've had before.
I had a lot of books that were stored other places. Yeah, so they just weren't in the Psych with Mike library. They were actually some of them were in a closet and some of them were in other parts of the house. And so I consolidated my books.
It's better for your books to be in the closet than you.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But I'd always wanted a place where I could display my books more genuinely, in a more genuinely library-like format. So this was a perfect opportunity to do that.
So would you say that books are like children? They should be seen and
not heard?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they should be read.
But they're not audiobooks.
No, they're not audiobooks.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about something today that my guess is that you had not ever heard of. Is that?
It's not your guess. I told you that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this, and I don't know anything about it except I think it could be somewhat specious. So we'll talk about it.
So tell me more about that.
I think that there are social trends that are like placebos that people get caught up in and tell themselves, oh, this is good, or this feels this way, or this feels that way, when there's no objective science to identify it or support it. But the rhythms of social interaction cause those things to percolate around the society. And I'm wondering if this is one of these things.
A kind of fad.
Yeah.
So what we are talking about is something known as ASMR, or Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, which I did not know.
How far away from the prime meridian would that be?
I think it's
in order to be autonomous.
From my research so far, I think it's pretty far away.
Okay.
So just for full disclosure, I'm not necessarily completely sold on this. I don't believe that you are completely sold on it.
I'm definitely not.
Yeah.
I've never experienced it, and I've never talked to anybody that's experienced it.
And the only reason that I bring it up is because I have clients who are talking about it now. And it is a situation where, and so let me just read the definition: a feeling of well-being combined with a tingling sensation in the scalp and down the back of the neck, as explained by some people in response to a specific gentle stimulus, often a particular sound. And so there are a proliferation of internet, specifically YouTube videos, of people engaging in this ASMR type behavior, and people are watching them by the millions. And there are people who do these videos and do them regularly that are making lots of money as YouTube celebrities because they are engaging in the production of these videos.
Well, if you're fortunate enough that you can have dulcet and mellifluous tones on a recording, then you might be a person who can do this.
Some would say that you're dulcet and mellifluous.
I've been told that endlessly.
But you're not going to make an ASMR video?
I hadn't planned to, but now that I know about it, might supplement my retirement income.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because it says ASMR is triggered. That experience of tingling, that pleasurable sensation, which other articles that we read call it a brain orgasm, can be triggered by things like whispering voices, the sound of paper tearing, scalp massage. So when you sent me this stuff, and I followed the links and I read the articles, and I looked at some of the YouTubes, there was one YouTube that was like an hour and a half of a cat licking itself.
Yes.
And they had recorded the sounds of the tongue rubbing across the fur. And I watched that, and my wife was laying on the couch across the room reading, and her head snapped around. She said, "What in the hell is that?" And I said, "It's a video Mike wanted me to watch about, ASMR." And she's like, I'm getting mad. I just want to slap that guy.
Well, I didn't specifically send you that video, but I did send you.
You sent me the link to the video.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, it was on one of the articles,
one of the
top 10 or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But I will admit that I find most of the videos to be at best vapid and at worst agitating.
I've only watched two, and I would agree with that assessment of both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I will say that I realize that I do get this response when I massage my scalp.
When you do,
And
not have someone else do.
no, and the reason that I put it together is because my wife will always massage my scalp
I remember
because
one of the Three Stooges used to do that in the movies.
massage his
Massage their own
scalp.
scalp all the time. You know.
Well, and maybe
So
this was
maybe they were ahead of their time.
something, yeah, that they were
Yeah.
onto. But my wife will do that, and she says that I really like it, and I'm always complaining because I don't want my hair to get messed up, what little I have of it. And so then I
It's a
started thinking about
paradox.
it,
Yeah.
and I realized that yes, if I have my scalp massaged, either I do it or my wife does it. I do actually really, really enjoy that. And I do get a tingling sensation down the back of my neck.
Do purr.
Not usually, but depends on context.
Huh. I just wondered if you were getting that sensation, if there was a pleasurable experience, if you really get lost in it. And I mean, and I'm not being
And
totally
no,
facetious. I'm
no, I
really
do
talking
not.
about.
Yes.
We have through the years looked at different themes that people were buying into, like self-hypnosis
Mm-hmm.
or meditation. And we've found that some of those have some real clinical validity and usefulness. This is a new one that's being proposed, at least it's new to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is it possibly valid or useful as a way for people to self-soothe,
Mm-hmm.
to reduce depression, control anxiety, relax? And if it is, then that could be a beneficial thing.
So, since I'm admitting that I think that I actually get this response
Yeah.
in specific context, I would say no. While I do enjoy having my scalp massaged and I do get what I believe is this reaction from it, could I use that as a way of self-soothing?
Yeah,
I don't
would you
believe
do
so.
that if you were upset or
No.
angry? Would that make
No,
you feel
I
better?
have never done that because I was upset or angry, and I have never made the connection oh, that makes me feel better. I've done it and said, oh, that feels good.
But so when you clinically are working with somebody that has some of these issues, and you try to teach them about thought stopping, stopping the rumination,
Mm-hmm.
stopping the feeling of being irritated or anxious or what have you, and you offer them some uh, movement ways, physical ways to try to interrupt that cycle. I mean, I know my son has dealt extensively with ADD
Mm-hmm.
experiences. And when he was younger, what we found is when he really lost control of himself, if he would take a shower,
Mm-hmm.
that being under the running water would soothe him and calm him down emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
So we would say to him at times when he was really crying and upset and out of control, why don't you go take a shower?
Mm-hmm.
Once you walk around the block, then come back and we can have a conversation. But you need to recenter yourself. So my thought is, should there be some validity, or even if someone thinks there's some validity, would this be a suggestion that I could make clinically? Well, why don't you do this for
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes as a way to take a break from your focusing on whatever you're upset about and calm yourself down? Would that potentially be beneficial? Or is it a hoax?
Well, whether it's a hoax or not, the reason why I would be reluctant to use it as a clinical tool is because I don't know that you can predict in advance how any specific person is going to react to a specific stimulus. And so,
Yeah, but I don't know that you need to. I mean, you can discuss it with them, and they can say, "Well, yeah, I'll try that." And if it helps them, then what difference does
sure,
it
oh,
make?
sure. If it were to help them, but you'd be just throwing darts at a board in a
Well,
dark room.
that's what I often do. Is,
Yeah.
read a book,
Yeah.
take a shower, go for a walk, do some push-ups, do something. Usually, it involves a physical break from what you
Mm-hmm.
were doing when you were distressed or what you were experiencing.
So yes, if a person were able to engage in a behavior that elicited this response, then yes, I think it would stop that, whatever it was, anxiety or that circular thought process
Yeah.
that they were engaged in. But I don't know that you could predict in advance. And although the research that I've looked at says that there are so many different things that could trigger this response in different individuals, that you don't know what that's going to be for a specific individual if they are capable of having the response at all.
Yeah, research is a loaded term here because so much of what's been written
Right.
so far is just anecdotal. Somebody says, "Oh, I had this," and somebody else says, "Oh, I had that." And so they haven't done any scientific research with replicable outcomes.
Right, they're beginning to.
They're
So
starting to.
in 2016, there was a single research article that was in publication, and it was a very anecdotally based article. More recently, there have been articles that have been written that have tried to put this in some kind of a more scientific paradigm. But yeah, the reality is that it's going to probably be 5 or 10 years before we're going to see real solid research. This is going to say, yes, this is a real physiological phenomenon, or no, it isn't.
Well, it's a challenge of the scientific method. You create or design a study or a research protocol so that other people in other places can replicate the experiment and hopefully will replicate the results. But what we found when we were looking at some of these early putative research articles is they found all kinds of triggers. I mean, like whispering, a whispering voice triggers 75% of the people that supposedly get this experience to make them have it. Personal attention, whatever that means. Does that mean that your wife is massaging your head, or does that mean I'm looking in your eyes and smiling when you smile? I don't know what that means. But 69% of the people say they get it when they experience personal attention. That would suggest to me they probably have some issues with social isolation that I would want to explore clinically.
And then would watching internet videos be the best way to treat that?
Solving social isolation, watch a movie, yeah. Or a video of somebody saying, I can be your friend for only $15. Crisp sounds like metallic foil, tapping fingernails. I've been slapped before for tapping my fingers.
Absolutely.
So that wasn't crisp enough, apparently.
You weren't doing it right.
Slow movements, repetitive movements. And actually, repetitive movements is a sign that sometimes identified as a sign of schizophreniform behaviors. Stereotypical movements, they're called. Smiling. Some people smile out of reflex. Some people smile out of happiness. Some people smile to be seductive.
Right.
To me, none of this is precise in a clinical way.
No, and not only that, but now we're getting into the very, very low percentages. I mean, smiling is 13%.
Yeah.
And if something
and
were going to
laughing
make
is only 2%, so smile quietly.
Yeah. So, if you were going to talk about something that would make someone feel more socially connected, I would think smiling, because that's a socially reciprocal behavior, would be more likely to elicit the response than whispering. So some of this, I think, is contextual in that a lot of these videos are at least suggestive of being softcore pornographic, and I think that there may be people that are responding to that as much as anything else. But the whispering, I don't see how that triggers this response. For me, I don't see
we did a podcast a couple months ago about people. We're talking about birth rates going down and sexual encounters in relationships going down statistically, because more and more people were watching videos even in bed at night on their iPad and masturbating by themselves as a single sexual experience and not a connected one with another human being. Right. So do you think this is what is this what you're suggesting? Am I hearing?
I feel like that there may be a link between those things, that people are looking for something to supplement what they aren't getting socially in their lives, and they are using some of these videos as a way to do that.
Okay. And so we come back to the question of, is this a clinically valid thing to discuss or recommend to your patients? Or if your patients come in and say, hey, look what I found on the internet, how do you interpret that so that you can understand what their experience is and what they're saying? And how then can you reflect back to them what you are understanding about their process, so that if it's possible to put a positive interpretation on it, an experiential interpretation on it, you want to be able to frame it that way. Right. Because you're not in control and you're not trying to be judgmental. What you are trying to say is, are you behaving in ways that increase your positive level of experience and your positive functionality? Or is this a way to avoid reality and contact and performance? Because sometimes you just have to function. And if this helps you function, okay, I don't see any harm in it. But if it helps you avoid functioning, then I do see harm in it.
Well, so right now, my feeling would be this, that I would not I'm not convinced enough that this is clinically significant enough that I would recommend it to someone who came in and said, "Oh, I'm having problems being able to regulate."
Yeah,
If
no,
someone
you just use it if somebody brings it to you.
if someone comes in and brings it to me, my first goal is going to be to explore what's their motivation. Because if
And
they're,
payoff.
yeah, exactly. If
Yeah.
their motivation is, I'm lonely and I'm watching a scantily clad female whisper into a microphone, then I feel like that there may be more to that than just
I'm lonely
getting.
and I'm watching a cat lick itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those things feel like that there may be other things that underlie why the person is doing that, then they're getting this ASMR response. Now, the science of it from
Maybe it's Schrodinger's cat.
perhaps the cat is both licking itself and not licking
And
itself
not there.
simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And the science of it from the little bit of research that's out there talks about that, this appears to decrease the inhibition of sensory emotional experiences by numbing the connections between areas called the default mode network, which is actually a similar response to what happens when you take psychedelics. That when we talk about the ego dissolution that is associated with psychedelic experiences, that is the same kind of reaction.
Well, okay, but that's a whole nother area of research that's
Right.
starting to come back. I mean, it was banned in 1933, and they haven't done any real research on it until the last year or so.
Mm-hmm.
And now the government is starting to allow some research on psychedelics like LSD to say, are there some positive ways that this can be experienced and controlled so that it brings benefit, not damage.
Right.
So,
well, and that's not, Johns Hopkins and Stanford have actually continued to do research ever since 1962 when Timothy Leary went to Harvard. And that's why the esketamine drug, which is going to be by Johnson & Johnson, the nasal spray, has actually gotten into clinical trials, is because they have continued to do research. It's been very underground research, and now it's starting to become more mainstream again. But this idea of this kind of response being linked to something that is associated with the same experience that you might have using a psychedelic, that feels to me tenuous.
Okay, so in summary,
yes,
we believe that clinically you take what people bring you and you try to help them use that in a positive way so that they are more functional and less distressed.
Absolutely.
So you're not judgmental. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to fight it off as an irrational thing or a non-helpful thing. What you want to do is take what they are offering and say, how can we understand this in a way that you can control it or regulate it? You, not you, the clinician, you, the client, and get a beneficial result from it.
Right.
And so let's look at the pattern in your life. Are things getting better? Are things getting worse? Are they continuing to stay bad? Are your relationships better? Is your self-soothing skills better? Are your positive self-discipline better? I mean, whatever it may be that we're working on. So as a clinician, what you do instead of be skeptical and sardonic and rejecting is you say, how might this help this person? How are they interpreting this in ways that are beneficial to good mental health, good emotional health? And if it can be done, that you can frame it that way and help them get better, then use it. If it can't, don't.
Right. But for right now, I am not sold on this as an actual clinical intervention that I would recommend to a client who had never heard of it before.
I put it in the category of people that come in and say, I see ghosts.
Yes.
I had somebody talk to me, or I was walking through a house and I had a cold shiver and I knew that it was a ghost in the house. I mean, they really believe that. And so what I do is not spend time challenging that belief and say, oh, you're irrational and that's never been proven and we can't see that. Say, how does that impact your life? How does that impact your relationship? How does that impact your depression or whatever it might be, your anxiety? Let's move forward so that you are stronger, more capable, more functional.
And, there's going to continue to be research done on this, and people may start to hear more about this in the future. Again, what we're talking about is ASMR, or Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And while I don't I think you agree, feel like that it may be something that rises to the level of clinical significance yet. It may someday in the future, and if it does, then we want to be on the cutting edge of...
Lexapro might still be better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My guess is that it will be.
All right.
All right. So we hope this was beneficial. If you have any questions or comments, you can get us at psychwithmike.com. As always, the music that appears on Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. And for Brett and I, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.